So you mentioned that you studied in London. Did you have a formal design education?
So I grew up in London and went to boarding school in the UK, and then I came to the States for university. So I came and I studied fashion design at Parsons.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Parsons girl, that's fantastic. Okay, fine. So, how was your experience at Parsons?
I think, you know, a lot of people ask me, there's great schools in the UK, there's great schools in Europe. How come you didn't stay? I mean, for me, I'd come to New York as a teenager and I really loved it. And I felt like a lot of my friends were having the opportunity to go elsewhere for university, whether it be Manchester or Edinburgh or get out of London and go and experience something else. And for me to study fashion, I would really have needed to stay in London and I really wanted to experience
And explore the world. I get
yeah.
it. Makes complete sense.
So I went to Parsons. Obviously, it wasn't your typical what you imagine sort of a university experience to really be because your campus is in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And at the time, it's not this way anymore, but at the time, the fashion program was in the garment district and everything else was downtown. So you were kind of in this like little fashion bubble in the middle of the garment district, which was amazing because you can, and the garment district isn't what it was back then. There were so many more factories and things going on. And so it was great to sort of really be a part of that. So it was just very much that sort of learning experience that you're getting, sort of being in the center of it all.
Right,
But
right.
it's definitely not a university experience and like meeting guys and all of that. Because first of all, most most of the program was entirely women.
Right.
So but I think, it was a great education in terms of the creative side of things. The business development side of it was very lacking at the time when I was there. And that was something that you really had to learn on your own through interning or doing the research and really sort of understanding the business yourself or through, different jobs and stuff. It was something that was not really taught at the time at
I'm
Parsons.
I'm shocked and amazed to hear that, or quite surprised because you have built such a phenomenal business. And you don't learn everything in school, right?
Right.
You take away things. It's a foundation and so forth. But building a business is not an easy feat. And to have been able to do that out of school, I assume is really impressive. And so to hear that is quite interesting. So then what happened next? You leave Parsons and most people intern. Did you intern? Did you start your company immediately? What was next for you?
I interned throughout my whole time at Parsons. So I was at Donna Karan, Oscar de la Renta, and Parenza Schooler. I think I learned the most at Oscar de la Renta and Parenza Schooler. The time they were completely different. Oscar at the time had, this very established sort of old school business. And it was like it was kind of one of those dreamy fashion environments that you it was kind of like an internship you would see like in the movies. It was
Right.
very like everyone looked great, everyone was fab. It was
Where was the office located?
it was on 7th Avenue.
Okay.
And it was actually right by Parsons. And so I used to run over and Mr. De La Renta was always, always cared about how everyone was dressed as well, in the office and had to look a certain way. And he would sing throughout the hallways and all of that. And it was just a wonderful experience being there. And then on the flip side, Parenza Schooler at the time were a really, really small brand and their office was in Chinatown and
I
it was
love it.
yeah, and I was running around to their factories and quality checking and stuff like that. But it was those factories that helped me that I started working with for my business when I started. And so it was just really sort of learning and seeing how people do things along the way. Sometimes when you think like, oh, I'm just getting coffee, I'm just making photocopies, you are taking everything in, seeing how this person that you're sitting next to is doing that. Or if you get to listen in on that meeting or, seeing, where they're buying fabrics and, there's just so much to take in that I think a lot of people take for granted that, oh, they're not doing enough or, feel like, they're just twiddling their thumbs. But I think there's so much to be learned just from seeing what other people,
Observation.
yeah.
the internships are so powerful. I
Mhm.
relate to how you feel because my first fashion internships were at Elle Magazine and Nicole Miller on 7th Avenue
Mhm.
simultaneously. And literally my first day at work, I saw Andre Leontali and Betsy Johnson skipping down the street, and I thought I had died and gone to fashion. That's why I asked you where was the office, because being in the garment industry, especially at a brand like Oscar de la Renta with Mr. de la Renta, and I can imagine the reverence, is just a remarkable thing to reflect on. So thanks for sharing
Absolutely.
that.
Because, when you're on 7th Avenue and at the
At the
time,
time.
there was, so many different fashion houses and people, in that building. I forget what number it was now on 7th Avenue, but there was lots of different
Mhm.
fashion houses in the building. So you'd meet other people as well, or other interns, and and it was just there was so much energy.
Yeah, yeah, and you grew up together.
Yeah.
So fast forward, you start your business, right? How did you decide on a partner? How did you meet? How did you get started? What gave you the inkling, the idea, the bravery to step out from, your internships? Like what was next after the internships?
I definitely planned on just getting a job afterwards. It wasn't it was
Interesting.
it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm gonna start a brand." And I was actually offered a job at Oscar de la Renta. It wasn't a design job. It was in textile. It was in the textile department. And I was just like, do I do it and then see if I can make my
Parlay
way
into something.
into
Yeah.
the design department? Is it is it gonna or am I gonna just get stuck there? Which can
Big
also
fear for everyone starting out.
so it was a big question. I was just like, oh, Oscar de la Renta, an amazing brand, but I don't want the job. Like, I
Right.
don't, it's not the exact job I want. And so I was just like, and so I decided not to take it at the time. I didn't want I was too fearful of getting stuck. And so then it just kind of came about organically. My partner at the time was someone who I'd gone to Parsons with, and we had felt that we could create, we had felt that there was something that we could create together that felt unique at the time. And it just was something that kind of started slowly, but then started to snowball. And there was a designer who was a mentor. He was a mentor to, like, I think it was our junior thesis. And it was
Okay.
someone that we'd kept in touch with. And he actually really helped us, even just sort of like doing the basics of the business that we didn't know. Like, oh, you need to apply for this thing and
Right.
make sure you have this, just like,
How to
and
operate.
how to operate. Do you have such and such? Did you file for this number? And I was like, what the hell is that?
Right.
So he was amazing in that sense. And it was just being really sort of scrappy and young at the time. And I think being young and naive was a huge blessing. Uh,
Fools rush in.
yeah.
It's a
Be-
blessing.
yeah, because I think I would have never had the balls to really do what did at that time.
If you knowing what it takes,
Yeah.
I feel you.
Right. And also I think, I could work until, 3, 4 in the morning.
No
And then
problem.
now I don't want to do that.
I
So,
call it tiger blood.
and so, yeah, to be honest, we ended up launching the business in 2008 when just the entire financial world was
That's
collapsing,
right.
which was,
During a recession, no less.
yeah, which was not great. But that being said, we got lucky and managed to secure, a great retailer and, grew slowly from there.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Slow is good.
Hmm.
So you definitely made your imprint on American fashion. With your namesake brand, you had a regular show during the New York Fashion Week calendar. And, that's no small feat, right? You had partnerships with some of the world's leading retailers. You truly had a fantastic, viable business. And I applaud you for that. How did you keep your business going for more than a decade?
Um,
I'm sure so many thoughts started flashing across your mind.
so many thoughts. I think I definitely kept a really tight, lean team for a really long time. And, it was definitely the team around me who, who really helped build the business. I mean, some of the people had, by the time I closed the business, some of the people, two people in particular who were, I guess, my most senior people, had been with me for 10 years and really understood the brand, really understood what I was trying to do. And so the people are really, really important as well. But it was also just, fashion can be tricky at times because it's this form of artistic expression, but then at the same time, it's a product and has to function and has to sell, has to be wearable, and has to do all of these things. And, there's a lot, and the schedule is relentless, and, you're constantly having to be creative and put new stuff out. And so to really sort of grow the business steadily with my wholesale accounts, I was producing in the garment district in New York. Pretty much almost say like 95% of the collection was all produced in New York for the entirety of the business. And so it enabled me to have the buyers buy the collection, and then if it sold well, I could recut. I could recut things really quickly and get it to them within 2 weeks. And so, whereas a lot of people couldn't do that. And so they loved that aspect. They're like, oh my God, this is selling really well. We want more. And so I was just really building the business that way. And then they were coming back with bigger orders and bigger orders. And for me, there was certain things that I had learned in particular from my internships as well that, about making sure that the quality was perfect and that fit was perfect and that production was on time. Because if you missed any of that, then stuff is coming right back to you and you're not getting paid.
Right.
So that was something that was just so critical to the business. And, it just, at the end of the day, it's just a lot of grit and hard work and just trying to, wear as many hats as possible and realizing when you've made mistakes and just try and correct them as soon as possible.